Start చేసా.
PHP functions. First, we'll know the introduction about a function. A function is a name block of code that performs a specific task, acting upon a set of values given to it as a parameters, and it possibly returns a single value after performing the task specified in the function block. A function is generally used in order to save the compile time of the program. It is very reliable and very easy, efficient to debug the code in the program. In this topic, we'll introduce the syntax of function calls, function definitions, and discuss how to manage variables in functions and pass values to the functions. It also covers variable functions and anonymous functions. Calling a function. Functions in PHP program are generally inbuilt or user-defined functions. Regardless of their source, all functions are evaluated in the same way. The syntax is shown here. The number of parameters a function requires differs from the function to function. The parameters of the function are to be evaluated in a valid expression, and must be specified in a specific order expected by the function. These are some of the examples of functions: string length, string assign, string length, sin or as argsin, unlink are the built-in functions of PHP. Here's the string length returns the length of the string of the PHP as value 3. The unlink function deletes the file specified in the quoted text of the parameter section. Next, moving on to the next slide. Here we discuss about the defining a function. A user-defined function declaration starts with the word function. The syntax of the function is given below. Example of a user-defined function. Here, this particular function results in the output of hello world. Here the function is defined using the function by starting with the variable like prototype function, and the write message is the function name. In this way, we will define a function, and after the block of code of the function follows the write message, which we are using to call a function. Hence, after the body of the execution is completed, it outputs on the screen hello world. Next, we'll look at the different types of variables used in the in the program, and the variable scope of the functions. There are two types of variable scopes that are global variables and the static variables. Global variable. If you want a variable in the global scope to be accessible from within a function, you can use the global keyword. The syntax of the global variable is global variable var2. Inside you can see the example related to the global variable. In order to declare the $a as the global variable to be accessible by any other function, we are using the keyword global in front of the variable. Next, moving on to the static variable. A static variable retains its value between all calls to the function and is initialized during the script's execution only the first time the function is called. Use of the static keyword at the variables first used to declare a function variable is static. The syntax of the declaration of static variable is presented here. And side you can see the example. Function parameters. The functions can expect by declaring them in the function definition an arbitrary number of arguments. There are two different types of parameters, types of ways we can pass parameters to a function. The first one goes by the passing parameters by the value, and next goes by the reference. Passing parameters by value. In most cases, you pass parameters by value. The argument is any invalid expression. That expression is evaluated and the resulting value is assigned to the appropriate variable in the function. In all of the examples so far, we have been passing arguments by the value. Now we'll see passing parameters by the reference. Where we use the ampersand symbol in order to refer a particular variable's address. Passing by reference allows you to override the normal scoping rules and give a function direct access to a variable. If you passed by reference, the argument must be a variable. You indicate that a particular argument of a function will be passed by reference by preceding the variable name, as we discussed using the ampersand symbol. Default parameters. PHP allows you to define C++ style default argument values. In such case, if you don't pass any value to the function, it will use default argument value. Next goes the variable parameters. A function may require a variable number of arguments. PHP provides 3 functions you can use in the function to retrieve the parameters passed to it. Function getArgs returns an array of all parameters provided to the function. Function number args returns the number of parameters provided to the function. And function getArgument returns a specific argument from the parameters. Here we can see, for example, the $array stores all the returned array parameters of the function, and the count variable here specified is used to store the number of parameters used in the function, and value variable here is stores the particular argument which is specified in the argument number of the functional argument. Here is an example of the argument counter. Missing parameters. PHP lets you be as lazy as you want. When you call a function, you can pass any number of arguments to the function. Any parameters the function expects that are not passed to it remain unset, and a warning is issued for them. Next, finally, we go to the type hinting. When defining a function, you require that a parameter be an instance of a particular class. And instead of the class that implements a particular interface, an array, or a callable. To add type hinting to a parameter, include the class name, array, or callable before the variable name in the function's parameter list. In PHP, we can use type hinting for object, array, and callable data types. Example of type hinting is displayed here. Next goes to the return values. PHP functions can return only a single value with the return keyword. Values are returned by using the optional return statement. Any type may be returned, including arrays and objects. This causes the function to end its execution immediately and pass control back to the line from which it was called. If the return value isn't specified, the function does not return any value after the execution of the block of code specified in it. Here are some examples of use of returns. And here here we are returning the value using a reference variable functions. PHP supports the concept of variable functions. This means that if a variable name has parentheses appended to it, PHP will look for a function with the same name as whatever the variable evaluates to and will let him to execute it. Among other things, this can be used to implement callbacks, function tables, and so forth. Variable functions won't work with language constructs such as echo, print, unset, isset, empty, include, require, and etc. Utilize wrapper functions to make use of any of these constructors or variable functions. Example of a variable function is given here. Next goes with the anonymous functions. Some PHP functions use a function you provide them with to do part of their work. For example, anonymous function is a function without any user-defined name. Such a function is also called as closure or lambda function. Sometimes you may want a function for one-time use. Closure is an anonymous function which closes over the environment in which it is defined. You need to specify use keyword in it. Most common use of anonymous functions to create an inline callback function. The syntax of the anonymous functions is displayed here. Anonymous functions example. Next, anonymous function as callback functions. Anonymous function is used as an argument for built-in usort function. The usort function sorts a given array using a comparison function. Here is a small executable code that uses the anonymous functions in PHP. Next goes anonymous function as a closure. Closure is also an anonymous function that accesses the variables as we discussed below before use that is specified in the closed region of the scope of the variable. Now we go. This is the by this we end the topic of functions. Here these are the now we'll discuss few most widely asked interview questions in PHP based on in the topic PHP functions. Explain the difference between $message and double $message. What is what is the main difference between those two keywords? The single dollar message is a regular variable and the double implies the reference to the regular variable. It is a fixed name and it also a fixed value. Here, as it is a reference, it stores the data related to the variable which it specifies. Next question is what is the difference between the include and the require function? The include function, this function is used to copy all the contents of the file called within the function text-wise into a file from which it is called. When the file is included cannot be found, it will only produce a warning and the script will continue the execution. In the required function performs same as the include function. It takes the file that is required and copies the whole code into the file from where the required function is called. It produces fatal errors like e-compile error. Generally, while using the required function, we pop up with a e-compile error. In include function, we get a warning required to it. Next goes what is the use of session start and the session destroy functions in the PHP? The session start function is used to start a new function. Also, it can resume an existing session if it is stopped. In this particular case, shown below, the return will be the current session if resumed. How do you define a constant in PHP? To define a constant in PHP, we use the define function and retrieve the value of the constant. You have to simply specify its name. Here, the next question is name some of the functions in PHP. Some of the widely used or widely known functions in the PHP. EREG function split and match split, etc. What is the use of callback in PHP? PHP callbacks are functions that may be called dynamically by PHP. They are used by native functions such as arraymap, usort, replace callback, etc. Callback function is a function that you create yourself and pass to end the function as an argument. Once it has access to your callback function, the receiving function can then call it whenever it needs to. Here we show a basic example of a callback function which uses its own syntax. Next goes to the lambda function in PHP. A lambda function is an anonymous PHP function that can be stored in a variable and pass any argument to the other functions or methods. A closure function, as discussed in the anonymous function, is a lambda function that is aware of its surrounding context and the region it to be executed. Here is a small example related to the lambda function in PHP. Followed, we go to the what are the PHP magic methods or functions. In PHP, all functions starting with the underscore names are magical functions or magical methods. These are the list of magical functions widely used or widely available in the PHP. Destruct, sleep, construct, wake up, call, string, get, invoke a function, set state, set values, unset, debug info, etc. Next, as we already discussed, what is type hinting in PHP? Type hinting is used to specify the expected data type of an argument in a function declaration. When you call the function, PHP will check whether or not the arguments are of the specified types. Here is a small example of type hinting in PHP. Email, email function argument email. Next, what is the need to be able to use image functions? GD library is needed to execute image functions. Next, which function gives us the number of affected entries by a query? MySQLite affected rows returns the number of entries affected by any SQL query in PHP. What does the unlink function mean? Unlink function is dedicated for file system handling. It simply deletes the file given as entry. Like it takes up the argument as the file name and helps in deleting the file system that exists with the name. And hence we stop the content here.
Okay, now let's see about arrays in PHP. So arrays is a data structure in which we can store multiple values. For example, let's have a cars variable, and the cars now we can have a set of cars stored within one variable itself. So it contains multiple values in a single variable. And the syntax for declaring array is just we need to specify any variable name on the left hand side, and then using array keyword within the braces we can just specify whatever values we should store in that particular array variable. And the advantages of array are we don't have to create multiple variable names. So all the information that belongs to a specific category can be stored within one variable itself. And also representing a matrix is easier, and also the due to its continuous memory allocation, we can access the data using indices, and also to find out the number of elements present in a particular array, we can use count function. And yeah, and then if we just give the information something like this, we are not mentioning the indices in particular. However, PHP also gives us an option of mentioning the key also, something like this. So here we have specifically mentioned the what the key is, and then we are assigning a value to that key. So in the we can access all the list of keys using array underscore keys function, and also we can access the list of values using array underscore value. Yeah, coming to interview questions. What is array in PHP? This is already discussed earlier. And yeah, and how to create an empty array. In order to create an empty array, we just use the array uh, keyword, and within the braces we won't fill in any information. And also how to get number of elements in an array, like I've mentioned earlier, we can use count function to get the size of the array. And then let's find let's see what different types of arrays are present in PHP. So there are three main types of arrays. One is numeric, other is associative, and other is multidimensional. So numeric array is just a simple array. We won't mention any key values. So the indices will be integers itself. So we can access, and also we can access the uh, information present in an array using integers, which are enclosed in square brackets as shown. And in case of associative arrays are similar to dictionaries in Python or maps in C++. we define the key, and also we define the value it's going to store. And the other type of array is multidimensional. Multidimensional is a multidimensional array is an array of arrays. One example uh, is shown in the PPT. Yeah, and coming to functions of arrays, we have a wide range of functions available by the array data structure itself. So sort is one of the function which helps in sorting the elements present in array based on in ascending order. And then R sort is reverse sort, which gives us a descending ordered list. And then A sort, so we have associative arrays, right? If we want our array to be sorted based on the value, then we can use A sort. And we also have K sort. So in case of an associative array, uh, if we want our values, if we want our arrays to be sorted based on a key, then we use K sort. Uh, and then similarly, we have AR sort and KR sort as well. They help in uh, returning an array which is sorted in descending order. And we have merge function as well. So what this does is it takes two arrays as parameters, and it merges those arrays and gives the final list. And one of the example is shown. And then insertion and deletion. Insertion and deletion both can be done by a single function named array splice. What this function does is it takes a array variable as parameter, and it also takes the beginning index, and it also takes the length of the array that needs to be inserted, and also it takes another array variable which is totally optional. So let's just look into removing an element in an array. So here there is a subject variable, and to that subject variable, I'm assigning an array containing these elements. Now I'm calling array splice and giving its first parameter as subject. Now I'm saying 2. So that means whatever the operation that needs to be performed, it must start from index 2. And I'm saying the length must be 3. And the other parameter, I did not give any other parameter. So what it does is it simply uh, removes the values from index 2 of length 3. So let's see. Uh, the second At the second index, math is present, right? So math, bio, and CS will be removed from our subject array. And similarly, in case if we want to insert, we will be doing the same thing. We'll be mentioning the index at which the new array must be inserted, and we should also mention the length of the new array. So this I've defined a new array, and I'm calling array splice and giving it the parameter as subject, which is this array. And I'm saying that at fourth index, I need another array to be inserted whose value is 3. So in this way, at exactly fourth index, the new array will be inserted. Coming to interview questions, uh, how to delete an element from an array. So we have discussed earlier, uh, we can use array splice for it, and also there is another function called unset. Using any of these functions, we can delete an element from the array. So, and also, what are the different types of arrays present? We have 3 different types of arrays: index, associative, multi-dimensional. Yeah, and list of functions we have already discussed: sort, r sort, a sort, k sort, pr sort, kr sort.